Well, we're back now with Senators John Kerry and Lindsey Graham. And Senator Graham, I guess the question to you is simply, what about that?
Well, I don't think John's going to be asked to run as Senator Kerry's vice president anymore if he runs again. But Iraq is important. John understood we were losing in Iraq, quite frankly, that after Baghdad fell, we had the wrong strategy in place. And John, above anybody else in the country, spoke against his own administration, argued with Rumsfeld that we didn't have enough troops. It's not just a few dead-enders. And he risked his own political career to turn it around. The surge. Senator Obama did not support the surge. He said it wouldn't work. He's been calling for a withdrawal of troops. He was wrong. The big test for this country is, how do you avoid losing in Iraq? If we'd have listened to Barack Obama, we would have lost. If we listen to him now, we will lose in the future and undercut all the gains we've made. We're winning because John McCain understood Iraq better than anybody else. The surge has worked. The political, economic, and military progress in Iraq is undeniable. The biggest loser in Iraq is al-Qaeda, because the Muslims in Iraq joined with us and turned on them, and they've punished al-Qaeda in Iraq. Anytime a Muslim will take up arms against bin Laden, sympathizers were all safer. The biggest loser in the future is going to be Iran. The Shia militia supported by Iran have been turned on by the Maliki government. The Iraqi army is performing much, much better. Their economy is growing. And still to this day, you don't know what Barack Obama really wants to do. He is in a bind. He said things that didn't bear fruit, and he doesn't know how to change. Al-Qaeda's on their knees. Iran's being contained by a stronger, more democratic, more effective Iraq. And the only way we can lose this war now is to go down the road that Obama suggests, and that's pulling out, sending a signal to al-Qaeda, don't give up hope, telling Iran you can still fill the vacuum created in Iraq. The enemy's on their knees, and the only person talking in a way to get them off their knees is Barack Obama, and I hope the American people will
Senator, you are just back from that part of the you're just back from that part of the world. I'm going to let you respond. What about this situation that Iran is being contained now?
Iran, that's not what you hear from everybody over there, including our friends, the Israelis. They are deeply, deeply concerned about Iran. They believe Iran has expanded its influence throughout the region. Iran is now more powerfully integrated with Hamas, more powerfully integrated and influential in Syria and with Hezbollah. Iran is proceeding now in ways that were unimaginable until we invaded Iraq and basically did what they said, which is provide the Shia with the ability to do what they haven't been able to do in 1,200 years, gain a position of dominance over the Sunni. All of their Sunni neighbors are deeply upset by that and deeply concerned about Iran's intentions. And the fact is, Lindsey doesn't want to admit this. The Republicans don't want to admit this. They hide behind the surge. The fact is that none of us doubted the ability of American troops in increased numbers to provide increased levels of security here and there. But that's not what has changed the fundamental dynamic with respect to al-Qaeda. Al-Qaeda has been pushed back because the Sunni in the Sunni triangle made a political decision before our troops even got there to work with the United States and turn against al-Qaeda. And they decided not to harbor them in their villages anymore because they were tired of their violence. The principal reason today for that transition is, number one, the Sunni awakening, the willing of the Sunnis, and our smart, General Petraeus has been smart. We trained them, we've armed them, but the Shia are very nervous about that. The fact is the fundamental political reconciliation necessary in Iraq has not happened. But secondly, look where the army was successful. When Prime Minister Maliki sent them into Basra, he sent them there because the British had pulled back to the air base, and it was necessary for the Iraqis to stand up. That's a success. Barack Obama has never, ever talked about pulling the rug out from under them or just pulling out. He has said we will leave people sufficient to continue to prosecute al-Qaeda. We will leave people to finish the training, and we will leave people to protect American facilities and forces, but we're not going to have American combat troops on the front lines 6 years later fighting a civil war in the middle of a political cauldron that their leadership is unwilling to resolve. That's what this is about.
Okay,
the surge was set up to resolve that,
let me ask one question here. You're just back from that region. There's talk that the Israelis, as you say, are concerned about Iran, and that the Israelis might launch airstrikes on some of the Iranian nuclear facilities. Would you urge them not to do that, or would you stand aside if they decided to do that, Senator Kerry? What would Obama's position be on that?
Well, you asked me what I would do and what Obama would do. I think that, let me speak for myself. I know that a President Obama will take no option off the table.
Okay.
A President Obama will always have the military option there. But I would certainly say to him, and I did say to the Israelis that I talked to, that it would be very unwise to proceed rapidly to a military choice, not having yet exhausted all of the remedies available to us in terms of diplomacy and options.
All right. Let me then interrupt right there and ask Senator Graham, what would you advise the Israelis to do right now, Senator Graham?
Well, my advice to the world, not just the Israelis, is confront the Iranian desires to develop a nuclear weapon by imposing sanctions that are meaningful. They import gasoline. The Iranian economy is weak. Not just the Israelis, but the Russians and the Chinese to join with the United States and Europe to stop this regime that seems to be hell-bent on acquiring a nuclear weapon. The Iranian efforts in Iraq have been contained and diminished because of the surge. Senator Obama loves to reinvent himself almost every month. In January 2007, he said the surge not only would not work, it would make things worse. He's been committed to withdrawing troops until we made him go to Iraq.
All right.
He hadn't been to Iraq in 2 years. Now he's got to go listen to the commander tell him about the success we've gained. He's in a box. He said that Iran was a bigger threat than the Soviet Union. Now he says they're not that big
We've got
a
to
threat.
cut it right there, Senator. We'll be back in 1 minute. We have to work in these commercials.